after that discussion, it feels any different if you attend to yourself differently as you're walking. Where are your eyes looking? How broad is your attention? Can you zoom in and zoom out? Thank you. And any movements that you might want to explore before you lie down that will give you a sense of where you are and how you are to start with. And when you're ready, you can come to your mat. Sorry. There you go. Don't know. And just check in how you're lying. We're not going to do a long scan. But just notice your contact with the floor. Your sense of all the parts of you. And just notice if your attention does go to one place or one aspect and stay there. Or can you move your attention? Can you move it to different parts of yourself? And can you have a sense of how those parts make up the whole? And is that something you feel in an internal way from the inside, or is it something that you see from the outside? And once everybody's beautifully settled on their backs, I'm going to get you to sit up. So, come up to sitting in the same way that we've been doing through this series, with your feet in front of you, your knees wide. And just see how this position is now as it becomes a little more familiar to you. What's changed? How much of you can you sense as you sit in this position? And as you think about holding on to your ankles and lifting one foot upwards, away from the floor, towards the ceiling, and straightening your leg, can you have a broad attention, a broad spread, so that you feel all of yourself doing this? And how do you know if you've got all of you in this? Because most of the time you don't know what you don't know. So just feel, how do you shift your weight? Are you sensing the other leg, the leg that's down on the floor, as well as the leg that's lifting? Can you feel how each leg connects to your pelvis through your hip joints, and therefore this relationship between your right leg and your left leg through your pelvis becomes important? And as your pelvis moves, that your lumbar vertebrae move, and that as they start to move, your whole spine is moving. And where does that end up? With with your head. So where is your head moving as you do this? It's what Julie was just talking about. As you shift your weight onto your leg and your elbow on one side in order to lift your leg on the other side in a way that feels light, where does your head move to allow this to happen more easily? Are you invested in trying to keep it in the middle, or can it move away from that? Does it move towards the side that you're lifting or away from the side that you're lifting? What makes sense? And some of you by now can probably hold your foot, not just your ankle. And if that's easy, do that. And if that's not easy, you have other options. You can hold the leg of your pants. You can hold your socks. Are you breathing? Whee. Are you rolling? And come back and stay sitting for a moment. And we're just going to look at another little thing that we've explored already, which is the idea that once you've lifted each leg like that, you might be able to lift both legs away from the floor. And they don't need to be high. They don't need to lift high. And can you have a sense that you're sitting as you do that? So this idea that what part of your pelvis is on the floor? So if it's the back of your pelvis, it's kind of more like lying. And if it's your sit bones, your ischial tuberosities there, it's more like sitting. And can you breathe? Whew. So let your feet down to the floor again and let your hands come behind you. And still have your knees wide, your feet, soles of your feet towards each other, which doesn't mean they have to be touching. And with your hands behind you, can you roll your pelvis so that you come more towards the back of your pelvis, and then roll it the other way so you come more towards your sit bones? That's it. And can you feel that movement? So your feet are on the floor, your feet are staying on the floor, and the movement happens around your hip joints. Your pelvis is rolling, and that movement of your pelvis, can you feel it connecting through into the rest of your trunk, through your spine, and therefore into your shoulder blades, your collarbones, that your head is going to move with this activity. So as your pelvis moves, and maybe you could think of that thing we did in pairs where you were letting your belly lengthen and expand and come down and forwards as you go into that extension, and then the rounding, coming into flexion. And can your hip joints be soft enough to allow your pelvis to do that roll? You've done this movement many times in many different configurations. Okay, so now leave just your fingertips on the floor behind you, and can you lift your feet from the floor? And they don't have to be high. You can lengthen your legs a little bit, but just to find a place where you can balance there, where it's not stressful, you don't have to hold your breath. And can you find a way to do something similar of moving your pelvis so that you roll into extension and flexion? And it's not just moving your pelvis, of course. It's moving all of you in such a way that your legs could stay pretty much where they are, just floating in the air, and your pelvis and your spine and your trunk, everything moves around that. And can you do that just lightly resting on your fingertips rather than leaning on your hands? Okay. And I'm just going to let you take rests whenever you want to take rests. I may well keep talking, but I want you to be really looking after yourself. So a few people were saying this morning their hamstrings were feeling a bit sore, been lengthening them and lengthening them. So, you know, take your rests. And so Feldenkrais talks a lot about the difference between stretching and lengthening in this series of lessons. So if you're feeling a little sore in your hamstrings, it may be that we've got a little bit caught up in the idea of stretching, getting that length beyond what's comfortable. So on your back now, can you just, with your legs out long, feel what it's like to just contract your quadriceps, to tighten your knee, as if you could just lift your heel a little bit from the floor without lifting your knee. That's the idea. Just on one leg and then on the other leg. So your legs are staying long. You just tighten the front muscle of your thigh. Yep. So here and here. So you're not lifting your whole leg. It's just like, could my heel just lift a teeny little bit, tiny little bit? Just do that a few times on each leg. That's it. And then let it go. And see if that somehow helps at the back of your hamstrings in that area. And then come up to sitting again. And this time have your legs long in front of you. Yeah. And you can choose whichever leg you're going to start with. If you know that it's easy, that you have one side that's easier than the other, go with that one. Otherwise, I'll say your right leg, but if you choose to do it differently, that's fine. So can you bring your interlaced hands behind your right knee or whichever knee you're doing? That's it. And and then just with your hands connected under your right knee, slide that knee forwards, slide your foot forwards a little bit. And as you do that, can you bring your head forward at the same time? So forward meaning not down, but forwards. Yeah? So, and you can think of the top of your head going in that forward direction as you slide your knee down. Now, that doesn't mean that your knee has to come straight. So it's just going as far as it's comfortable to go. The idea is your knee's coming down towards the ground, but it does not have to reach the ground. And your hands are under there so that you have this connection from between your leg and your arms and your shoulders and your spine and your pelvis. Have we included everything? So there's this idea of lengthening your trunk as you lengthen your leg. And do that many times and feel. You might like to vary your trajectory as you do that. You might like to, as your head lengthens forwards, maybe it goes a little sideways, maybe you have a little turn. Can you do this in a whole lot of slightly different ways? Maybe you can make a little bit different shape through your trunk as you do it. Maybe you lean a bit one way. Just find, for a very, very simple movement, can you find some ways to add some variety into that? Where are your eyes looking as you do that? Okay, so then when the next time your leg is forwards and your trunk is forwards and your head is forwards, can you do a little contraction of your quadriceps? So you just lift your heel a tiny bit away from the floor. So we're in whatever position, so you still have your hands under your legs, under your right knee or your other knee, and you're forwards as far as it's comfortable to be. And then just a tiny little lightening of your heel or a lifting of your heel from the floor. And each time you come back and you rest it, and then you do it again. So you're staying at that lengthened position and you're just doing these little tiny lifts. And how do you find a way for that to get, for your heel to get a little lighter, and for this muscle at the front, your quadriceps muscle, to be active, to allow your hamstrings to let go a little bit more, to do less at the back of your leg and a little more at the front. And just check that you're still breathing and that you still have the idea, each time you lift your heel a little bit, that you could be thinking forwards with the top of your head. So that each little lift goes with a forwards movement, a lengthening of your trunk. So your pelvis kind of pushes your whole spine, your whole head forwards, and at the underneath in your sit bone, that it goes, you can almost feel that it goes a little bit backwards, that your hip and your sit bone can go back a little as the top part of you goes forwards a little. Is that making sense? Yeah. So as your head and your trunk are reaching forwards, that your hip and your pelvis on this side actually have a sense of going backwards from your sit bone, from your hip. On the same side. Imagine it. If you go, and it's tiny. It's what we're looking at is direction. It's not like it's going to move, 10 centimeters backwards. It's like this bit goes back as your foot goes forwards, as your trunk comes forwards, with your hands under your knee, if you can. And you need, absolutely, that's fine. That's fine. So have a rest, everyone. Yeah. So this is it's a tiny movement, and it can feel tight. So give yourself a rest away from that. And just notice how that leg feels compared to your other leg. And when you're ready, come up again. We're going to explore it a bit more. But this time, can you bring your forearms under your knee? So it probably, for some of you, you'll still be able to have your leg all the way down on the floor, but for a lot of you, it means your knee's going to be further away from the floor and a little more bent. Yeah. So with your forearms under your knee, just step by step, walk that foot a little forwards. So you lift your heel and you take it a little forwards, and you lift it and you take it forwards, and you lift it and you take it forwards, so that your chest is staying because it's closer to your thigh to start with. It's coming with you as your knee and your foot go forwards. That's it. And it's tiny. Yeah, and don't go into discomfort. Oh, cramp. Okay. So when, it's so attractive to try and go further and further and further. And I actually, when I was playing around with this, I had to put a roller under my knee to stop myself trying to get to the floor. So just feel that you do not have to get to where your leg's straight. We're seeing, we're bringing all of you into this, the lengthening of your whole system. It's not just about lengthening your hamstrings, lengthening your leg. So and then once you get to that long place, you can come back again and you can do these little hops forwards with your foot again, and feel how, as you do that ischium can be tilting back a little, your belly's forwards and long, and that you're breathing. And where are your eyes looking? Or not? And can you, when you're at the longest point now, can you just do some more of those little lifts, little taps of your heel? Little. So you can feel, and they can be so small. It's just like lift enough that you could slide a piece of paper out from under your heel each time. It's not a great big lift. It's just to give yourself that action of straightening your knee from your quads so that it softens at the back. Yeah? And have another rest. That's it. And see how you're going. And so as I look around the room and see you all doing this, some of you can do this so easily. Years of doing stretches, probably doing activities that allow you to have long hamstrings, or just naturally that flexibility that I was talking about my daughter having. And I can remember in my training, we didn't follow the Amherst model. We did a different thing, lots and lots of ATM. And I think there were maybe one or two that I couldn't quite get, even from the start. So I was fit, I was flexible, and I just thought I was doing this so that I could use it with my patients. And what I did love about this way of working, though, was this feeling of really coming into my body and feeling it. But the learning side of it was a little bit obscure for me. And I learnt so much from talking to my friends and colleagues who were struggling with the ATMs, of what they were learning, how they were learning, what was changing for them. So if you are struggling a little bit with these ATMs, be reassured that all of that having to negotiate and figure things out and work it out is a fabulous part of learning this method in a really deep way. And if you're finding it really easy, the challenge is to find different ways, what else can you find out in doing this, rather than just, oh, well, I can do it, so that's fine. So come up again and have, again, your forearms interlaced under your Same knee. And your feet in front of you, your legs long in front of you, but with this knee up and your forearms under it. And can you find a way to put your chin onto your knee? That's it. And in fact, you could put your chin over your knee so that that's it. So your knee sort of sits in under your chin a little bit, if possible. Or you could imagine that there's a string or a stick or something connecting your chin to your knee if you don't quite get there. And as you take your foot forwards this time, that your chin and your knee are going to stay together. Okay, so so the first bit is, where does your knee need to be to get your chin to reach it? Might need to be higher than what you've been doing, yeah? So again, some people just go, yeah, chin to knee, easy peasy. And others are going, I don't think my chin's ever been near my knee. So whatever the approximation is for you, and put your foot on the floor. That's it. So you need to come forwards. That's the way. And then again, can you take that foot forwards with your chin and your knee in the same relationship? So whatever that is, it might be that your chin doesn't quite reach to start with, in which case you're just going to try and keep the same distance between your chin and your knee as you take your knee forward. So your foot's on the floor and you're taking that foot. You can slide it if you like, or you can step by step by step tap it forwards. This one might be easier to slide. Let's make this a sliding one. So your heel is sliding forwards as your chin stays on your knee or towards your knee, whatever's feasible for you. Yeah? And so you're not walking forwards in space. You're just sliding that foot because just slide. So you're staying in the same place on your mat. There was a bit of very creative movement going on there, which was really nice. But see, if you just slide your foot forwards, yeah. How does your chin stay there? And what happens through your trunk, through your belly, through your chest, to allow that to happen, to allow you to lengthen? You can bend that leg. So your other leg, yeah, it's probably easier if it stays long-ish, but it does not have to be rigidly straight. Yeah. So just let it bend a little bit out to the sides. Experiment with where that's going to be easier. Yeah. That's it. And can you not be caught up in having to get it long, having to get it straight, having to get your knee to your chin to your knee, or your knee to your chin, but that this is he's putting all his constraints on as a way of bringing this middle part of you into the movement. And when you've had enough of that, you can lie down again. which might have been 5 minutes ago. And for others, they could keep doing this forever. So it's so interesting how, in a room full of people, so many different abilities of doing this. And, I think in just about every exercise class that I've ever done, everybody does stretches at the end, and it's quite interesting watching how everybody does those stretches and what the outcome of those stretches are meant to be. I don't know. And I also have had quite a few clients who are so committed to stretching. It's the thing that they love to do. And for clients with chronic pain, I think it's, you know, not particularly a useful way of dealing with movement and with their bodies and with their pain. But somehow this idea of stretching has become something that is pretty prevalent in the way that we think of ourselves as healthy, you know. Yeah. So Feldenkrais, he was very particular about the fact that we're not trying to stretch muscles here. We're trying to allow them to let go enough that they can come into their fully lengthened state. So for all of us, that fully lengthened state is going to be different for each of us. And Julie was talking the other day about how we can have this effect on the muscle fibers, but we still have connective tissue, we still have fascia, we still have tendons. So we're trying to find a way for the hamstrings here and other muscles to be able to let go, to not have to work, to not be committed to holding in the way that we often are used to them holding, but that we can allow them to disengage, to not be actively contracting. And in that state, you'll find that they can lengthen. Basically, muscles can shorten or they can let go. They contract or they don't contract. When they're not contracting, they can be long. When they're contracting, they're shorter. So, with that idea, come up to sitting again. And this time, bend both your knees and bring your forearms underneath your knees again. And this time, can you walk your feet one by one by one forwards again? But now we're taking both legs forwards. Yep. So in order to, if you're all tied up like this, in order to lift your foot, you're going to need these muscles here just to lift the weight of your foot. And this is another way that he's using to allow your hamstrings to let go again, is by activating the antagonist muscle, the quadriceps muscle. So your arms underneath are supporting your legs. Yep. It's going to be easier to have you to do it with your heels, yeah. If you try and keep your toes down as well. Yeah. So just lifting very lightly, each heel, just lift and take a tiny bit forwards, tiny bit forwards, tiny bit forwards. We haven't added that yet, but if you'd like to, degree of difficulty, we can. It's coming. You're right, Sue. It's coming. So for now, just take your foot forward, step by step by step. Yeah. No. One by one by one. Lift your right, lift your left, lift your right, lift your left. And how can you help it? Take them as far as they're comfortable to go, yeah, but not where they're forced into a stretch. So can you differentiate those two states? Yep. And then you can come up again. Yeah. That's it. And you might find that one is easier than the other at this stage. Yeah. So now that we've done that, you can bring your chin to your knees or towards your knees, yeah, and do that again. Just walk your feet one by one by one. Whatever you're doing. This is the instruction and you can work out for yourself, yeah. So what happens in terms of your weight on the floor? I think was Helen's question, yeah? What happens through your other foot? What happens in your pelvis? Are you moving a little side to side as you do that? Or are you trying to barrel down the middle? Now, when you get to your longest point, to where your feet are the furthest away from you without feeling like you're going into a big stretch, and that's it, and your head is somewhere towards your knees, could you turn your right ear a little bit towards your knees? And then could you turn your left ear a bit towards your knees? And when you're turning your ear, are you just turning your head and your neck, or is something else going on? And can you find a way for your head to kind of nestle? That's a nice soft word, isn't it? To nestle into your knees. Yeah? Or, so so that there's contact there between your head and your knees. And if there's not quite, then maybe you could imagine that there's a big fluffy pillow between your knees and your head could rest onto that. Yeah? And then with your head now resting on your knees, take your feet forwards again with your forearms underneath. Yeah? And when you get to the furthest point that you can get to comfortably, can you tiny little bit lift one heel and lift the other heel and see which one's easier? Is one clearly easier than the other or not? Or is it just both? Beautiful. Have a lie down. So how many people found that the leg that we had been exploring on before was easier to lift that heel when we got to two legs? You find a difference or not? Yeah? Yeah. For me, that was like, pull, completely different on each side. Okay. The opposite. So there you go. So feel as you come to rest. How is this feeling in your system? How are you feeling in terms of length and width? In terms of frustration or boredom? This is that zone of learning. So if you're ready to do a little bit more, come up again. And if you're not, then rest there. Enjoy some peace. You can imagine doing this. So for those who are up again with your legs long, just bring your forearms interlaced in the non-habitual way, so whichever way you had them before, change them over. So to check that out, just put your forearms under and then change them over. But you know, we have it. Who knew we had habits around that? But we do. So, and this time, can you just do it around the leg that you didn't do it before? Yep. And can you, that's it, bring your chin onto that knee and just walk or slide that foot forwards, which is what we didn't do before, and feel how this is a slightly different shape in your trunk. And so if your chin can reach your knee, you can bring your forearms under so that you're sort of holding your elbows, Nina. Might be easier to do this. Yeah. And just slide it forward and feel on this side, do you get a sense of being able to lengthen your leg and lengthen your trunk, and that hip, that ischium can kind of have a sense of moving backwards as your leg and your head and your spine move forwards. That there's that back, it's sort of like as you fold up this side of your hip, this side of your pelvis can lengthen back to allow that folding to happen. And one of the other things Feldenkrais was talking about this is skill versus will. So, you know, we're very good at using willpower to do these things of getting further and stretching and achieving. And he was adamant that we should be using our skill instead. And skill meaning, I think in this case, our ability to be aware of all of us in this movement, our ability to shift weight, our understanding of when we're straying outside our learning zone. So as that foot comes forwards and our chin stays there, feel the connection through the whole of this side, the whole of the other side. You're breathing, you're lengthening, your curiosity, if you can still manage to have some curiosity about this, of how to make it easier, softer, more pleasurable, and then beautiful. Bring it back again, and then put your forearms under both your legs again. Find a place for your head to rest towards your knees or on your knees, and walk your feet forwards again. And see, this time now that we've done a little bit on the second side, does it feel a little easier? Or more even? Not even easier. Is there something else that you can feel in yourself that allows this movement to be more possible, more comfortable, more aesthetically pleasing, maybe? And when you get to your longest position, where your legs are as far forwards as they can comfortably reach, and your chin is, or your face or your head somewhere is towards your knees and your hips are backwards, could you lightly, a tiny little bit, lift one heel a wee bit and then the other heel a wee bit. So as you're lifting your heels, your knees are straightening again, that tiny little bit, tiny little bit. And as you do that, each time you lift, think of long, long, long trunk. And that's it. And then let it go. Rest on your back again. That's it. And see as you're resting, how are your legs lying on the floor? How is your pelvis resting on the floor? And how's your weight distributed in general? Does it feel more even or less even? Are there more spaces or less spaces underneath you as you've gone through this process of lengthening? And when you feel ready, you can bring both knees towards you, over your chest, so that you can hold underneath your knees. That's it. And see now, what is it like to take your feet forwards and upwards, to straighten your legs a little forwards and upwards, to bring yourself towards sitting. Do you remember how we did this last time? That the connection through your arms, so you want to keep your hands in the same relationship to your knees, and as your legs lengthen forwards, that pulls through your arms, into your shoulders, into your chest, allowing your head to lift to come towards sitting. And see if that's any different now. So your legs are lengthening and straightening in that forwards direction to find a place somewhere on your pelvis to rest, with your legs up, your arms connected underneath, your head just riding along, coming forwards away from the floor. And which part of your back do you come up on? That's it. You can come back down again. And just notice, are you coming up straight along the middle of your back, or a little to one side, or on a diagonal? What's your pattern here? And the next time you're up, you can stay in sitting. That's it. How do you stay soft as you do that? Yeah. Even if you don't come all the way to sitting, just that feeling that this straightening of your legs can lift your chest and your head away from the floor. Lovely. So stay in sitting and just see now, if you lift both legs from the floor and you have your arms out and your legs out, find a way to balance on your pelvis now. Where's a position that becomes possible, maybe easy, maybe elegant, who knows? And see what without, so have the idea that your hands and your feet could stay in the same position in the air. I feel like I'm playing Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. And that you could move your pelvis like we did at the start, rolling, that's it, bringing yourself into a little bit more extension and a little bit more flexion through your whole system, and that your legs and your arms could kind of stay, yeah, and that you could breathe, yeah, and belly forwards to come into another, that's it, and then belly back to go back. Beautiful. Belly forwards, that's it. And can you feel that you can stay long? All of this can stay long, long, long as you do that. And your legs can be just lightly in the air. We're not having to engage all of those muscles of your legs and your hips. You actually working using this proximal organisation. And that's it. Your head is coming up and going down. And you're breathing. Yeah, beautiful. Okay, let it rest. Let go. One last little lie down. And just feel if anybody's, is anyone uncomfortable in their hamstrings after doing all of that? No, well done. Or you're just not owning up, that's all right. Your back was getting a bit sore, and is it okay now? Yeah, good, good. So as you're having this last little rest, feel whatever parts of you were struggling do not need to struggle now. Everything can come to rest. And maybe we could use that beautiful question that Julie stole from Elizabeth Beringer, and now I'm going to steal from her, which is, can you think of any movement that you've done in this ATM that felt really satisfying aesthetically? It felt like you were in that sort of lovely zone of enjoying the movement. And can you think of that movement? Can you imagine that movement in yourself? And then could you actually do that movement? It can be big or small, it can be a mini version, or it could be the full version. Whatever felt to you like you really enjoyed it. It might have been the rests in between. But there might have been some moment in there that you just went, oh yeah, this bit I like. This bit feels good. Just come back and remind yourself of that bit. And then when you're ready, you can bring that sensation up to stand. And see how that is. I'm just going to come and stand next to you in my matching jumper. Twins. So just feel how you are there. And if you just had the desire to reach down towards your toes, maybe there's big toes got a bit of an itch, see how it is to do that. And see whether all of these movements that we've been doing the last few days make that an easier thing to do. Doesn't mean you have to have your knees straight, but just feel, is the floor a bit more accessible now? And you have a sense that you can do that without shortening and contracting, without holding your breath. And then come up again and have a walk. And where are your eyes? How does your weight shift from foot to foot? Is this a lesson that makes you feel like heading somewhere in particular? It might be heading towards someone for a hug. Might be heading to the toilet. Might be heading to the urn for a cup of tea. So have a break now.